Welcome, everybody. Let me know if you can hear the sound of my voice. Anybody? I see some responses. I have an address. Okay, great. I was going to ask if somebody had an address. Why don't you text it to me? Usually when we're going to talk about how to do a market analysis, and I'll get to that in a little while. Usually, real estate agents are cruel. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but a lot of times when I say, hey, let's give me an address to do a CMA, I end up getting an address that, is almost impossible to do. It's a custom home where there's no homes around it, and it's, a weird lot, and, all that sort of stuff. But I'm sure Monica is not going to make it too difficult. What I want to do. All right. So yes, text me an address and we'll get to it in a bit. So why don't we go ahead and get started? I know more people are going to be wondering, and there's some topics that we're going to cover today. I'm going to spend some time on pricing a property. At the beginning, I just wanted to show you what the new RPR looks like. If you haven't had a chance to wander in and take a peek at it, it looks different. That was the problem with last week, because I discovered after I had scheduled to do a session on RPR that they were changing RPR. And so, it didn't make sense to explain how to use software that was going to look radically different. And there's some things that they've done that I really like. They seem very nice. One of the things, because I'm involved in some commercial real estate as well, is the ability that you can just toggle back and forth between residential and commercial. In the past, you'd have to it would change the whole layout. You either could be looking at residential or commercial, but it was a hassle to look at the two. And so just for a moment, let's go through the, Monica, that's the text message I'm getting. So let me look at that. All right. So let's just go through a little bit of a discussion of what the changes are. For the home page, it looks different. Research, we just go across the top. This is where they put a lot of the different searches, and we'll spend a couple of minutes on this a little bit later, to search for a property, to do a map-based search, to do a neighborhood search, which allows you to break down micro neighborhoods, intermediate-sized neighborhoods, census districts, how you can search by school district. There's some warnings about that. Market activity search, commercial, and there's also a video on how to do it. In the marketing tab, there's different things for prospecting for residential clients. If we click on that just for fun, this is going to pop up, and it wants to know, are you looking for buyers or sellers? Commercial clients, that I'm going to do in another class on how to use those. That takes quite a bit of a while to do that. If I want to create a property flyer, because I'm doing an open house, which hopefully sometime we'll do again, or a commercial property report. I ran one of those the other day on a property that we're listing. But some of those things about prospecting with RPR is going to come a little bit later, but you're welcome to click on it and have fun. The reports tab, again, this looks a little bit different, but here are the different kinds of reports. And if we click on any one of them, which I'm going to get to in a minute, it'll show you all the different reports that you've run. You can see I just ran one recently as I was practicing. There's a learn, there's a help desk. Under my work, it would have your listings, your 10, 20 listings, however many you have at this time, any properties that you've saved. And this is a useful thing. In another session, I'm going to go through how to use the mobile app for RPR. So if I'm showing properties, there's two things I could do with the mobile app. One is that if I do a search on the mobile app, I can create a report that's really a mobile app tour of the properties that we're going to look at, and I can send it to a client. But the other thing that I do with the mobile app is if I'm showing 3 properties, let's say, then I will go on to RPR and look at each one of those 3 properties and save them, because on the mobile app, it's very easy for me to bring up the saved properties. So when the client starts asking detailed questions about the property, I can pull it up on the mobile app, recent properties, reports that have been done, notes, saved searches, recent searches. They've added a lot to that. And then, of course, over here is where you can update your profile and things like that. I'm not going to really get into that too much. Now, one of the changes that I find kind of interesting is something called My Markets. And this is on the home page, right? I'm going to click on the home page just because I know you probably don't believe me, right? Notice it didn't change. So this is on the home page. And what I've done is over the years, I guess, I've created a variety of these. I didn't know where they were, but now I can find them. And so this is one that's for Morgan Hill, right? And it shows that there's 47 properties, and I could actually do a search on the map. Now, Morgan Hill, this doesn't work quite as well, but I'll show you why. San Jose, it works a little bit better. But what I'm looking for on the map search is something that says show geographies. Now, Morgan Hill is the city, so that's not going to help me. If I click on census tracts, see all these orange lines, those are the different census tracts in Morgan Hills. Now, opportunity zones is a more complicated thing. I guess there aren't any in Morgan Hill, but this is a federal thing where you can get tax breaks if you're an investor and you're buying a property that's located in an opportunity zone. If I went to San Jose, I would see more of them. Morgan Hill is 1 zip code, so that's not going to help me. Macro neighborhoods, Morgan Hill is essentially one big macro neighborhood. Intermediate neighborhoods, it's one great big, it's a little town, don't you know. But micro neighborhoods, now you can start to see, if I were to zoom out a little bit, right? You can see that there are, maybe I need to zoom in. I need to zoom someplace. All right, maybe there aren't very many. I missed it, micro neighborhoods. There we go. So these are geographic groupings. I see a hand up. I don't know if that's because somebody wants to talk to me or not. These are little groupings, and if I click on one, notice I can search in this area. I can create a market activity report. And a market activity report is a report based upon what's active and pending and what is sold recently, and I can set some time parameters. The neighborhood report gives me statistics and things like that. Now, I'm not actually sure that it breaks it down to just that neighborhood, or if it does it by zip code, but we're going to find out. In the past, it was only doing it by zip code. Let me just see, somebody's got their hand up. If video, if you have a question, type it in, or if you want me to unmute you, you're gonna. Now it's going a little bit slow right now because a lot of people are checking it out, right? A lot of people are checking it out. So I see people, I see video that you're raising your hand, or it's Kamal, but you're muted by yourself. So I don't know if you have a question, type it in. Maybe, anyhow, this is going to take a while. I shouldn't have tried this. I know that it's going really, really slow. Here we go. Can these reports be sent automatically? No, they can be sent through email, but they don't have the ability for you to just, I shouldn't run a report right now. Here, let me, let's go back up here. Too much going on. That's not what I want. All right. All right. So I'm not going to run a report right now because is it too tuned for To YouTube? No, the NAR has a YouTube channel, and the NAR has a bunch of videos that show you the new look. So we're not going to run reports right now because I know that the system is kind of congealed, let's just say. But a lot of the specifics as to what's in the report and how you do a comp analysis and things like that have not changed. To some extent, it's been a refresh or cosmetic. But the thing about my markets is, let's say you were going to add a market. And so, is everything going to be slow today? Just because it knows we're doing stuff. Yeah. I know that there's been warnings on the site. Maybe I shouldn't have tried that either, right? Because I want to be able to do this. I'm going to just explain so that we can get into something more useful. So as you might guess, if you wanted to create a market that you were interested in, you would click on My Market. And they actually had banners today on the site saying, you know, the site was slow, lots of people are logging in. I should have given this a week, but you can sort of see what does it do when you've added a market. Oh, there we go. Hopefully this will come back. Any good jokes? I don't know. Did you hear about the optimist that died in the freak bathtub accident? I don't know if you ever heard that. An optimist who drowned in a bathtub accident. Yeah, it was half full. You asked. All right. Let's see if I can get back to the home. Had problems connecting the audio again. Thanks for showing up. You're welcome, Oscar. So there may be a recording, but I don't know how good it's going to be because the site is all messed up. Let me just see what happens if I start fresh. Maybe it'll let me in. And if it won't, yeah, perfect. So let's see if this eventually loads. And while we're doing that, let's talk about how would you run a market analysis. And if I ever can get RPR to come back alive, we'll go back into it. But you know, it was changed yesterday, and so I guess everybody is logging into it right now, and that's why the site is lagging so much. But Monica wants to know what a property is worth. And so some of the eventual end product for this would involve RPR. However, I'm going to close RPR for a bit, and we're going to go back to RPR to see if that works. But I'm going to go through what I would do if somebody called me up and they said, I'm interested in selling my property, and here's the address, tell me what it's worth. Now, depending upon which MLS you're in, your MLS will either look like this or it won't look like this, right? There are people that I coach or mentor that are on my team that are in 3 different software programs. There are people that are in MLS Matrix. That's what we're looking at right now. This is the name of the software. There are people that are in Bridge MLS that use a program called Paragon. And then there are people that are in like MetroList or others that use a program called Rapatoni, right? Those are the three big purveyors of MLS software. And so the idea is relatively similar, but some of it looks, the interface is very different. And so one of the things that you need to do if you're going to be good at real estate is to understand how to use the software that comes with your multiple listing service. So what I would do, and again, I know that for Monica, she's in the Bridge MLS. This is going to look a little bit different. But what I would do, and you're going to have to just interpret, there is a way in Paragon to do a map-based search, right? I think it's a lot easier in Matrix, but what I tend to do is I start by highlighting all of the different properties, right? The different statuses, active, pending, canceled, withdrawn, whatever. And let's say that the property that we want to do a market analysis on is a single family home. Now down here, I have the ability to put in the address of the property, which is 5200 Blue, let's see if we can, Sky, and there we go. And notice it found it. Now in Paragon, there's a similar deal, right? Where you can do a map search and you can put in an address and you could say within a certain distance, right? It isn't as handy as this. But what I would tend to do is to start by looking at everything that's within a quarter of a mile. And I can, because I'm using Matrix, say I want to see everything that has changed its status in the last 90 days. Now in Paragon, you need to go up and put in these different dates for everything, but this is an easy way to do it. Notice it says there are 5. Now, the reason I'm using a quarter of a mile is because investors, people that really have to hit the number right? Because if you're an investor and you're buying a property to fix it and to flip it, you got to hit the number right when you make the offer. If you're $50,000 off and then the repaired value doesn't come out, you're in deep trouble. And so typically an investor is going to start by looking at properties within a quarter of a mile. So I'm going to hit that. Now what I see, the reason I threw in canceled is because it shows us what some people did not get, right? And then I'm looking at sold, pending, sold, sold. And most of the solds are all on Homestead Way. There's one pending. I might click on them all. And for this point, I might get rid of the canceled. And I usually start by doing what's called a quick CMA, which is something that Matrix has. And there are reports that Paragon runs that look sort of like this, but it tells me that there is one property that's pending. It's a 4-3. It gives me information on the property. It gives me the recent sales. What I'm really looking at here, and I'm looking for a couple of things. Number one, I'm looking at the dollars per square foot. And I'm looking at that range. And notice you can see there's quite a big range in the dollars per square foot from 386 down to 312, which was pending. We don't know what they actually got. And it gives me highs and lows. Now, the other thing that I would be doing, which maybe I would have done first, but I'm sort of off my game a little bit because RPR is not functioning. In our area, we have access to something called Realist. And so I typically, and by the way, I could do this in RPR, but RPR isn't cooperating right at the moment. But if I type in 5200 Blue Sky Court, Antioch, and I hit enter, it's going to give me the tax records. All right, it's going to give me the tax records. And so one of the things that I typically would do, and I like this because I can do it right from the MLS. I don't have to go into RPR, which as you see from today is not going very well. I'm going to look at this and I'm going to look at the bedrooms, bathrooms, year built, when was the last sale date, 2000, right? That's interesting. And I'm going to look at the lot size and that information. I'm going to look at the owner's name, and I want to make sure that the person that I've been talking to about selling the property has the same name as the name that is there. Now, in the Bridge MLS and the Paragon, there's a different tax service that they use, but it gives you pretty much the same information. Now, this will give me other information, right? I can scroll down, assessment, that's not so, CoreLogic, sales score indicator. I'm not really too sure how good that is, but it's showing that it's probably very high. That should be good. This real AVM here is done by CoreLogic, and that's the same. Yeah, almost. I was hopeful for a moment. That should be the same number that is used in RPR to determine the value. So the real AVM is 549. It gives a range of 510 to 587. Confidence score is only 77. I don't know. This shows me the last time it was purchased and sold, which was back in 2000 for $250,000. They're going to have a capital gain, foreclosure history, and then here's a map of what the property looks like, right? And by the way, one of the things that I always would do is I would copy this. And we're going to do about pricing because I don't know if RPR will come alive. If it does, we eventually end up in RPR to run the report. But what I'm going to do, if you have a question, might want to explain what an RVM is. It's a type of a recreational vehicle that's for mountains, I think is what RVM stands for. Wait a second, that may not be right. So RVM stands for the Realtor's Valuation Model. And I was going to get to that because the Realtor's Valuation Model is a form of an AVM. And an AVM means an automated valuation model. And if you're wondering what is an automated valuation model, let's just start with the more famous one. It's called Zillow, right? So Zillow's Zestimate is that. Now, what I'm going to do, if I were going to do a market analysis on this property, is I would make a note that Zillow says 542. By the way, when the RPR, when you're in RPR, which we may not do today, and it gives a realtor's valuation model, and there's a certain number of stars, 3 stars, 4 stars, 5 stars. What do the stars mean? And the answer it means how consistent is the realtor valuation model with other automated valuation models like Zillow. All right, are there any other automated valuation models between, well, realtor.com. Now, sometimes realtor.com doesn't even tell us what they think it is worth, but this one they do. So what I would do is on my little notepad, I would say realtor.com. And by the way, I'm going to show this to clients, right? I'm going to show this to clients. There's a class that I do called 5 Ways to Value a Property, but I'm going to show this to clients because whether I agree with it or not, we have to confront the reality that other people are going to see it. Potential buyers. Are there any other valuation models? Well, let's see. Trulia is usually very similar. How about our buddies over at Redfin? By the way, Redfin had a really good quarter. They actually made a profit. Isn't that amazing? You might think, well, don't they make a profit every year? The answer is no, not really. What is the difference between an RVM and an AVM? And well, so the difference is the RVM is done by the real. It's a product that only real estate agents can get their hands on, and it's actually done by CoreLogic. And so the realtors think it's more accurate, right? That's the difference. So what I'm going to do is, this is Redfin. I'll put that in. Notice now, Wow, yeah, that's a lot less. And back under our real list, where we had a valuation model, I might do that. And sometimes what I do is I would, so sometimes what I actually do when I'm actually going on an appointment is I will add this all up. I should have done it a little bit differently, but I'm going to take these and yes, I show these to clients. I put this as part of my presentation. And then so I don't know what to do with this. What's half of that? I'm going to put this in here. Redfin is so annoying. So I'm going to say, because what I'm going to do is average it at some point. All right. And so here we go. And then down here, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to average. I'm going to do that. So I got to tell it. So that's the average of the automated valuation models. And I would probably say AVM for 5200 blue sky. And yeah, I'm actually going to, yeah, I show it to people. There we go. I don't know, it's a thing, right? So now that I've done that, I want to make sure, by the way, whenever you're going to do a market analysis on somebody's property and they call you up and they say, I want to know what is our real, I thought, anyhow, real AVM is a realtor valuation model, right? Which, notice RPR is still not loading, which means it's CalDRE is the company, the engine behind it. It's a form of automated valuation model. If we ever get back to RPR, we'll be able to see what that is. All right, now comparables, I usually don't use this, but I can't get into RPR. Hopefully later we will, but this shows some properties in the area. We're not really going to do much about that. So let me just go back to the point of all this. So when somebody says, I'm interested in selling my home, and I'd like you to come over and talk to me about what it's worth. Yeah, I know, Monica, we'll get to that. And the client says, I want to know what my property is worth. One of the questions you want to ask them is, before you go there, is to describe your property for me, right? Describe it. There was an agent that I was coaching and mentoring, and she had a listing appointment in East Palo Alto, and I was going to go with her to help her get the listing. And so the way we were dividing the work is she was going to do the market analysis and run all the comps and things like that. And my job was to get them to sign the listing agreement. So she looks on the tax records, and it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1,300 square feet. And when we show up, the house is a 5-bedroom, 3-bath, and about 2,500 square feet. They had done some work without permits. Well, our market analysis is out the window. Now, what she was giving me this scared look, like, what do we do? And I said, don't show them, just don't mention it, just hide it. And so what I told the owners is that an appraisal and a professional would not just show up and tell you what they thought your house is worth. That's not professional. It's not the way it's done thoroughly. So what I like to do is I like to see the house and take notes, and then I'm going to do some research after that so I can be more accurate. How does that sound? And the guy said, well, that sounds pretty good to me. Great. So that's what we did. Right. So now that I've run these, and with Monica, the other question, which Monica already knows the answer to, the other question that I'd always ask people when I'm going to go see them is I would say, have you been paying attention to what's happening in the market in your neighborhood? Right? And they'll say, yeah, sort of, great. Great. So do you have an idea of what your property is likely to sell for? Do you have an idea? Now, you usually get one of two different responses. One is they'll just blurt out a number, right? I think in Monica's case, they blurted out a number, which is a fairly high number, right, compared to what we've got. And then at least I know what they want. And now I'm kind of sort of looking to see, is there anything that would support that number? Other times they would say things like, no, we're not going to tell you what we think. We want you to tell us what you think. Right now, one of the things that I've realized is that if I tell people what I think their house is worth before they tell me what they think it is worth, I oftentimes will get I oftentimes won't get the listing. Right. So what I want to do is I really want to know what they think their house is worth before I show up. Now, if they say, no, we're not going to tell you, you have to tell us, that's why we're counting you, great, I understand. And I go on and I ask them some more questions. By the way, if you're in my coaching program, I have a list of all these questions, right? And one of the questions that I would ask them, but not right away, but soon, I would say, do you have a loan on your property? One or two, or more than, are there any loans on your property? Okay, yeah, great. Do you have an idea of how much you owe? And then if they tell me, I'll write down that number. And then a little bit later, I'm going to ask them, by the way, are you looking to net a certain amount of money when you sell your home, right? Because I've already asked them, well, why are you selling your home and why are you planning on moving there and what do you plan on doing? And is there a certain amount of money you were looking to walk away with when you sell your home? Now, I've had people that wouldn't tell me what they thought their home was worth, but they'll tell me what their loan amount is and how much they want to net when they sell it, right? And if you have any of the title company apps on your phone or even a calculator, you can kind of figure out what the property is going to need to sell for in order to do that. Now, there we go. I'm just going to do a CMA. I'm not going to play with any of the other reports and things like that because I may never get back. The other thing I might do after I've run a quarter of a mile is I might go back to the criteria. And even though I'm going to eventually go into RPR now that we can, I want to see what the MLS says. And then maybe I'll go out to a half of a mile. Now, remember, Realist is saying this is a 4-3, right? And it's about 1,600 square feet. Now, if we're looking for a good comp, we would probably want to match the 4 bedrooms if possible. And then the 1,680 square feet, what I want to do, and sometimes this is easier to do before we get to RPR, is 1,680 times 0.1, 1,680 times, it's been a long day, 1,680 times 0.90. Why am I doing this one? 1,680 times 0.9 is 1,512. So let's just say 1,500. What I'm doing, if you're wondering, sometimes I wonder too, is I'm trying to find a square footage range 10% below and 10% above. 1,680 times 1.1, 18, let's say 1,850, and I'm rounding a little bit. Right now, the reason I'm doing that, and yes, I know I'm going to be doing this in RPR, but I'm starting in matrix, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I shouldn't have put in the spaces. And I'm going to say for square footage. All right. Now I'm looking at this number down here. Notice it went down to 5. If I click on 4 bedrooms, it goes down to 4. Now I might do 4 plus just to see if there's anything bigger. Still 4. All right. Now the other thing that we might want to match is age. This was 1997. Let's just see what we've got. All right. Let's just see what we've got from that. And we've still got our canceled. There's only 3 of them that match. And there's Pruitt, 675. There we go, Monica. Pending. We're going to look at that. That's a half a mile away. And we have the 2 on homesteads. And a quick CMA is going to show us some raw numbers. Now, one of the reasons that I'm doing this is because sometimes I've noticed that RPR may not have all of the comparables that are in the MLS. I don't know why, but sometimes it doesn't. So now that we've done that, what I'm going to do is once I've done a little bit of work, I'm going to copy the address. I'm going to go here. I'm going to type it in. I'm going to hit, we'll let it run, let it rip. I hope it. Well, so Ken, have you heard any good jokes lately? Nothing. Apparently I haven't either. Do you know how you can tell a computer engineer, a computer engineer, do you know how to tell if an engineer is introverted or extroverted? I don't know if you've ever heard that. There's a way of telling if the engineer is introverted or extroverted when you meet them. And the way you can tell is if the engineer is introverted, then they look at their shoes when they talk to you. And if the engineer is extroverted, they look at your shoes when they talk to you. How about that? I bet no one's going to ask me for another joke. All right, so here's blue sky. Notice the RVM is 516. Let's see, is that the same thing we got here? It's a little bit different. And I've noticed that even though it says and it sounds like it's the same thing, this is core logic, right? And so sometimes I just put that in, and then I'm going to insert a row above, and this is RPR is what I'm just going to call this. And I'm going to go here, and I'm 516,660, right? 516,660. 516660, hit enter, and then this, I have to change that, is the average of all. Yeah, it's the average of all of those. I guess I put in more. How about that? And we don't really need all those decimals. All right, apparently it didn't really not change. Let me make sure. Average. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so, and we're looking at a range. Now, the thing is, like Monica's house, this is a special house, right? I'm sure the owner has told her that. It's a special house. And, you know, gold-plated faucet knobs, and there's shelves under the stairs and things like that. The first number is not right. Ah, you thought I was trying to cheat you on your house. There we go, 511, it made a big difference. All right, 511. Well, anyhow, so we're looking at the range, but let's go back to RPR. So let's say Monica's client wants, I don't know, 6 something, right? 650, 680, 7, why not? One of the things that we can do while we're looking, and what we're doing here is we're refining the realtor valuation model. which notice they say they updated on 210. Notice they've got 5 stars, which means that that it matches what they think other automated valuation models are saying. Notice the range is between 4, but the thing is, they have not seen this house. Monica's seen this house. It's a beautiful house. So if we click on refine the value, what we're able to do is refine the realtor's valuation model. And so first of all, you're going to look at the basic facts. Does it have the right number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and square footage? You understand if they've done things that have changed the square footage, the number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and that sort of thing, and it's not reflected in the county records, we would need to change it here. And by the way, one of the more common questions that agents have asked me is if I change the numbers in RPR, does that change the county records? Right now, if you thought about that, I think the answer is obviously no, because real estate agents would be changing the county records all over the place, right? And so, no, this is just for your notes. So you can put in you change it if the house no longer looks like what the county record said. So have they done any improvements? Well, here's a list of potential improvements. Did they do they probably didn't do a basement remodel, attic insulation, deck addition, bathroom remodel. So I'm not going to go through the numbers, but if you talk to the owner, one of the things that I ask, this is in my list of questions to ask, and I would ask this before I went there, describe the property, right? Because I want to know if their descriptions matches the county records, describe the property. And then I'm going to say, have you done any improvements, any remodeling, any additions, anything like that? I'm going to ask them. And if they say, well, yeah, we did a major kitchen remodel. Well, was it a mid-range? You know, they may or not know. Let's say it's a mid-range kitchen remodel. When did you do it? Well, let's say we did it in August of 2011. How much did you spend? Let's say $50,000. Now, where is this analysis coming from? And the answer is it's coming from a company called Henley Wood, which is a big remodeling company. They publish a thing called cost versus value report. If you're in my coaching program, there's a copy in the document library. There's tile in the garage. It's a really nice house. I bet it is. So it's refined for local areas. So it's looking at the address of the property. And there's a difference between cost and value. Now, when we see this number over here, when we click on add, and I'm not saying that this is an appropriate thing, but although we spent $50,000, notice the effect it had on the value is only 18. Right? Henley Wood, Handly Wood, Henley Wood. If you're in my coaching program, you have a copy of the cost versus value report. So by doing this, what we're doing is we're adjusting or refining. You see over here the refined value. We're taking what they think it's worth, they being RPR, and we're adding to it. We've gone up to 535. Now, this is, I don't know, just an estimate, right? You understand? We don't know. I don't know whether or not this was a high-end remodel or what they spent, but you could add a bunch of them, right? You could just keep adding them and it would refine the estimate. You also could ask the questions, are the market conditions average in Antioch, right? And you would know that by average days on market and things like that. Is it hot? You know, I wrote an offer the other day on a property in Los Gatos, right? We wrote for over $3 million, which was above list price. There were 26 offers, and the listing agent said that they went above 3.5. That's super hot, but let's say we move the slider over. What that's going to do eventually is it's going to up our estimate, right? Maybe it hasn't done it yet. Is the exterior notice it says relative to the comparables. Now, I usually don't do this a lot because It's difficult to make the subject property compare with comparables. Usually it's easier to adjust the comparables with the subject property because one comparable might be better than the subject property and others might be worse. But if you say, well, it's better than the others, the interior is better than the others, the lot size is bigger than the others, it's got a view and the others don't have much of a view and it's more private. And notice what this has done is it's adding to that number, right? It keeps adding to the number. We're already up to 567. I don't usually spend a lot of time on this, right? Because refining the value is a little bit more difficult. But what I want to do is let's go back to the summary, right? I just wanted to make sure that you realized that you can mess with it, right? Let's just do that. Now, when we get to the property facts, you know, I don't see, it seems to be missing something that I used to use before. All right, so let's just plow ahead. I don't see discussions. All right. There was a way for us to see which properties they used in coming up with the realtor's valuation model. And I don't see that, right? I don't see it. Anyhow, it gives them a history. So let's just do a comp analysis so that Monica will know what they're listed for. Create a CMA. Now, remember, I ran some comps anyhow. And one of the things I want to do is to make sure that those comps match this, right? In other words, that there isn't something that the MLS says that's sold that RPR doesn't find. One of the other things that I would typically look at is some of these properties that are around it that have sold maybe did not actually go through the MLS, right? Like this one here, if I click on it, it may not have gone through the multiple listing service. How would we know? And the answer is that this software is using title company software, and it's using title company software. And I don't think that this went through, this is the same one, but it's using title company software. And maybe it did go through the MLS. Let me see. Recording date, deed type. Right. See, I don't see any evidence that this was an MLS sale. So we'll get to that. What I would do is I would have, if there were any off-market properties, but we'll get to that. There's a comparative analysis or the sales comparison. The sales comparison analysis is more for an appraiser to use, or if you're doing something called a BPO. And a BPO stands for a broker price opinion, which I'm not going to get into. Normally, you don't want to get into that. It's far more complicated. We would confirm the facts. Again, if there was a difference in the square footage and we'd made the changes, they would appear here. Assuming that the house is what it is, we're just going to click on, we've confirmed the facts. And we're waiting for it to go around. All right. I'm surprised. And by the way, RPR, they have issues right now because of the site. And I'm going to call them and ask, how can I see the properties that were used in your realtor's valuation model? Anyhow, because I just don't see that as easily. I'm going to be paying attention to all this information here. Find comps. All right. Now, what I want to do is to include active and pending, I don't see all the choices that I'm used to seeing. That may be, all right. So there's the property. What I would normally do at this point is I'm going to say the off-market date, 8/29, I don't know, that's a little different here. Year built, keywords, search, price range, dollars per square foot. Wow, they've changed it a little bit. I have a feeling this is going to be changing. So what I want to do is interesting. So I don't see how I get to so there was a way, which I do not see right now, where I could do the search based upon a radius, right? Which I'm not seeing anymore. I just don't see it. Somehow I have a feeling I could say micro neighborhood, no micro neighborhoods available. Okay, that's fine. Why don't we just go ahead and do the search? Sorry about that. The changes are still. So here's the search. Use a custom area. The custom areas, I guess I could do, you see, it's not quite, yeah, I don't know, right? This will work. So here's the subject property. Here are all the properties around it that have sold. 515, it's closed. It's a 4-3, 1475. If I want to use it as a comp, I would click there. Here's one, 4-3, 1680. That's fairly close. If I want to use it as a comp, I'll click there. I guess I could use this one. I would have to look at where the proximity is to the street. Notice I don't see anything in this area that is, this one's a 3-2, so I would tend not to do that. Here, let me modify the search. We would really like to just see the ones that are here. Okay. So now see these little blue things, that shows me that these properties were used in the realtor's valuation model. Now what I'm doing is I'm looking at what they think the property is worth, and they're calculated on $308 a square foot. So here's 349, that's a little bit higher. This one at 293 will probably disappoint our client. This shows me how far away it was from the subject property. Here's a 4.2, 377, they'll probably like that. 3 properties are for sale, 492. Wow, now when that's look at that price, 803,000. So if I click on that link, it's going to show me what the property looks like. So I haven't seen Monica's listing, but the question would be, how does it compare to this, right? You know, and you can go look at and then you can read Quail Cove, new home community. This is a much newer property, right? So because of the fact that this is, how old is it? 2020 is when it was built, and the subject property was built in 1997. So this one is kind of, kind of a lot newer. Here's another one that's a lot newer. Now, by the way, Monica, I would be worried about this because this is a new home, which means it's probably updated and everything. It was on the MLS for 99 days. It sold for 630,000. We don't know what the selling price is because it's pending. However, if you look at the list price, when it went under contract, it was 630,000 or $386 a square foot. It's roughly the same size. And I would call, if this is a new home, they may not tell you what it sold for, but then sometimes they will because they didn't change. Here's another one for 675, 1631. It looks like a similar model. It was a brand new home, right? And so look at our range. It's 544 to 633. And the reason it goes up to 633 is because of this comp here, right? The $377 a square foot. If we took it out, right, that's the high end of the range. Now it looks like that there were some functionality that I don't see anymore, which might mean that they've deleted it, or because of their refresh, they haven't gotten to it yet. So what I'm going to do is update the valuation and close. And before I do that, I should have looked here. These on Homestead, right? I didn't see that one. Did we see one on Homestead? I don't think so. So let me get this one. How much did it sell? Only $324 a square foot. That's not necessarily going to help us. But what you would do if you found one that wasn't an RPR, we're going to go back and edit the comps, right? So let's say was there one on a Homestead? Here, that was 5144. I thought there were two on Homestead. 5144. Let me see. Next. 5162 Homestead, 312. Yeah, not, and it's a 4.3, built in 1994. I'm just going to show you how to do this, although Monica may not want to add this. But we could go up here where it says add a known property, and we could paste it in, and it'll add it in, right? So sometimes if we find off market or properties that were in the MLS that we didn't see in RPR, that's one of the reasons I run the MLS, to see if there was anything that appeared in the MLS. Is there anything with a higher dollars per 270? We're going in the wrong direction. All right. So, yeah, this is the range. Now, I have a feeling that's not exactly so. If there's something that seems to be pulling us down, like now the one I added, which was an off-market property, is pulling us down, I could just remove it, and then that would up our evaluation a little, but we're still not near the place where the seller wants to be. So now that we've done that, we could adjust the comps. And what adjustment means, we've looked at the pictures, we've read the real estate agent's description. And by the way, this is why farming can sometimes be valuable, because if you're farming a geographic area, the idea is that you've gone and looked at the properties that are on the market in your farm. So you would be in a better position to say, well, this property is better than that one, right? You could say that. But notice these little sliders. How does this property compare to the subject property? Let's say it's worse, right? It's worse. How much worse? Now, this is kind of a subjective thing. Is this one worse? Yeah, we think it's worse. How about this one? We think it's a lot worse, right? And this one, we think they're all worse, right? Because we've asked the owner, and the owner thinks, notice that's added 68,572 to our analysis. We're boiling the books, right? Changing the comps. And we're letting it go, right? Let it run. All right, we just had a listing cancel. Is it a rare area? What do sprinters eat before a race? Nothing, they fast. Oh, I'm too slow for jokes like that. You can blame Oscar for that joke. All right, so it's going to go around. Please wait. Yeah, we've been doing that all day. So the last thing that I would show you is, once we've done all this and we wanted to look pretty. We're going to click on create a report. Now the report that has everything in the kitchen sink in it is called the seller's report. The seller's report can be 90 pages long. Now, one of the things that we can do in a report, notice it says here, manage custom pages. So if we click on elements, right? If we click on elements, it's not really giving me a choice, but there are ways for us to remove some of the elements from it. Doesn't seem to be cooperating. What custom pages are is, let's say you have testimonials, your marketing plan, the generic stuff your company gave you, which says the company is really good and people ought to sell because you're working for that company. I'm not sure, most people don't care about that stuff, but any of that other stuff, right? There are graphs and charts about if you don't sell in the first 2 weeks and the price is going to go down, and there's all of this material that you could find that you could use in a listing presentation. And if you want, you can add up to 5 PDFs. And the 5 PDFs, none of them can be larger than 10 megabytes. Right, so if there are, because essentially all RPR is going to give you is a report based upon the market data. They're not going to give them your marketing plan and all that other kind of stuff. So we would add that by just, clicking on that and adding it, right? And then when we're done, right, we could email it to the client. I usually like to run it and look at it before I email it to the client. Because I just want to make sure. And notice it says it's on site slowness, we're working on it. All right. So I'm going to probably throw in some other things as we go along. Once RPR has slowed down all of the activity and things work. There's some other things that they've done that are kind of cool, but right now it's kind of difficult to get to them. That's a little bit about pricing, but let me say this. There are 3 ways to price the property. This is what I always tell clients, right? 3 ways to price property. The first way, which is the way that is likely to produce the most offers and to give you the highest price, is that we're having a sale. It's that way. And what we do in the having a sale is we deliberately price the property below where we think it's going to end up. And the reason we do that is so that we can get a frenzy of activity and get people bidding against each other. We're more likely to get multiple offers. We're more likely to get offers without contingencies. That system usually nets you the most money. The second way I call price is right. And the price is right way is we look at all the facts and the figures and we think about it and you go through all of your receipts for all of the money that you've spent in fixing the property up, which, remember, from Henley Wood doesn't necessarily translate into a change in value, but we could do all that and you could come up with the number that you think your home ought to sell for, and we could write down that number and we could list it for that number and we could stick to that number no matter what. And sometimes nobody makes an offer, right? Sometimes nothing happens, right? But we might get 1, we might get 2 offers. The third way of pricing your property is called the needle in the haystack method. And in the needle in the haystack method, we deliberately list it for more than we think that it's ever going to sell for, with the hope that some crazy person might walk into it and buy it anyhow. And in the real estate business, we typically refer to those as expired listings. And then I would say to the client, so which of these 3 strategies do you think would work best on your house? And almost all the time they say number 2, price is right. And then I say, I'm sorry, excuse me, I probably wasn't good at explaining this. Let me try one more time. There are 3 ways to price your property. The first way is more likely to get you the best price and the biggest net when you sell your home and the most offers, and it's called, and usually they go, okay, I hear, because I basically say exactly the same thing that I said to begin with. Now, the other value of having that we're going to price it low so that people are going to bid up is that we don't have to hit the number right on the dot. We don't have to hit the number right on the dot. We don't have to know the actual number, because we're going to price it low in order to get a frenzy of activity. And by the way, one of the things that I would be doing back in the MLS program is I would look at all the sold properties that were within, let's say, a mile of the property, and we're going to go back 180 days maybe. And let me just see what this shows me. Here, why don't I do this? I would, I'm going to clear this, clear the whole thing. Right? I'm going to clear it. And I'm going to look at sold properties, single family homes in the city of Antioch. In the city of Antioch. And I'm going to say the last 90 days. And there's 296 of them. And why don't we just see how many 4 bedrooms there were? 123. Right. Now, the reason I'm doing this is I'm going to select all of them. And I've created an export, which you can do in Paragon or Repatoni by modifying the fields and things like that. But my export is called how much over? How much over? And then when I export this and I open it up, it opens up in Excel. I type in the difference. And if you want a copy of this, but you can see it's the address, bedrooms, bathrooms, square footage, dollars per square foot. And I want the percent. And then this equals the sales price minus the list price. And the percent equals the difference divided by the list price. There's videos of me doing this. And I tell Excel it's a percent. And then I do this. And I drag it all the way to the bottom. And then what I'm going to do once I've done that is I'm going to let Excel know that that's a bunch of fields. And I may start with percent. And what I want to do is I want the largest to the smallest. And so what this is showing me, look at all these people that got 10% or more, 10% or more. Also notice the people that got 10% or more than their list price, see how low the days on market are. Also, it tells me, excuse me, what is the dollars over list price? And in order to make this easier to read, I might just do that. And then I might sort it by largest to smallest. So there, look at how many, are there people getting $50,000 to $80,000 over list price? So do people in Antioch list it low and sell it high? Yeah, it would look like it. And then I would also take a look at the other way, which is smallest to largest, and look at, does everybody get what they want? No. So here's somebody that started at 466. They were doing pricing strategy number 3, right? They ended up getting $50,000 less than the list price. And notice that in this group, you see higher by, usually, there's a few weird outliers there, you see higher days on market. Now, the reason I would do this report, and by the way, you can run this in Paragon or Repatoni, you can just create your own spreadsheet. It comes out as a comma separated value file. You open up in Excel, is because you want to see, is this a market where people are typically getting more than what they listed the property for? And what's the average? And if you want to know how we would figure that out, first of all, the MLS would probably tell us, but if we want to average it, I just want to make sure it doesn't have, yeah, and we hit enter. So on average, people in Antioch, single family homes, last 90 days got 4% more than what they listed it for, on average. But notice there's a whole bunch of people that got a lot more than that. And then there is a bunch of people that got what they listed it for. But notice their days on market, 108, 39, 42, their days on market is higher, right? And so anyhow, that's something that I would always look at just to see whether or not because in Morgan Hill, by the way, people aren't getting, it isn't that much over list price. So you have to more likely price it closer to the dollar amount, right? But the value of pricing it low so that people can bid up means you don't need to know what the sales price is going to be. You don't need to know that. right? Because we're going to price it in such a way that we're going to create a frenzy and get people to bid against each other. And look at some people bid 50,000 or more above the list price. Anyhow, I hope that was a useful discussion with you. Sorry that everything, you know, that RPR is a bit slow. How much is my coaching? No, reach out to me, Sandra. We can talk about it. All right, send me a priceless is how much my coaching is. Priceless. Because I'm not showing, if you're not in my coaching program, you don't get to see all of the good classes about how to get listings and how to, you don't get to see all the good classes. All right. Thank you, everybody. If you are interested in finding out more how you might be able to improve your business, and like Sandra, you're interested in that sort of thing, reach out to me, right? I'd be happy to talk to you, and I'll see you guys at another time. Bye, everybody. Next time, more jokes. All right, I need jokes.